We need to know that when we cast a ballot, it counts. That when we vote, it matters. So I'm proposing we make every vote count. We are committed to ensuring that the 2015 election will be the last federal election using first past the post. We're actually sending out, as of this weekend, postcards to every household in the country that will allow you to go online and fill out a survey that talks about your values, talks about what kinds of governance, what kinds of electoral system might you want. That's not, type A or type B, or from a long list of different styles, but what are the values that underpin it? Do you think that diversity should be within political parties or across multiple political parties as represented in our House? Do you think that there should be a direct link between an individual MP and a specific geographic area? Or do you think that MPs can just be accountable to the party that generated the list they're on? Various questions like that will get at to what really underpins what people want improved in their electoral system, which for a large part is people want their votes to count better. They want their choices to be better reflected in both the makeup of the House of Commons and the kind of legislation that's put through. And they want our government and our parliament to do a better job of reflecting the full range of diversity and identities that Canada comprises of. And those are the questions that are top of my mind.
Electoral reform. But my question isn't specifically about that. I ran in the election of 2011, and as you know, that involves a lot of door knocking. One experience that really stuck with me was I spoke to a gentleman who said he does not vote because politicians are all the same. They say exactly what you want to hear during the election campaign, and then they just turn things around and do whatever is convenient for them. So my question to you is, what do you say to people who don't vote, to those who did vote for you based on what you said you were going to do, only to have you turn around and not do what you say you're going to do?
Yeah, no. Great question. And thank you, and it's one that I've obviously been struggling with over the past months. The commitment I made repeatedly and explicitly on electoral reform, I made because it really mattered to me. And it does really matter to me that we improve our democracy. And I know that there are a lot of people out there, actually the vast majority of Canadians, who, yes, want to see us improve our democracy. I also know that it's really important that when it comes to changing our democracy, we do it right. I mean, everyone can see that, moving forward on increasing cybersecurity for our political parties, for Elections Canada, yeah, that's something that's important to do, creating more transparency in fundraising, making it easier for people to vote by turning back the Unfair Elections Act. Those are meaningful changes that we know and can be very comfortable are going to leave us better off in the future as a country. Electoral reform, changing the way we vote, is a big change that will and could have far-reaching consequences for our country and needs to be taken very, very seriously. It's more than just who might win a few more seats in the next election. It goes to fundamentally how we operate, how we value, and how we hear diverse voices within our parliament. And for me, and I've been arguing this since long before I became leader, I always felt that we could make a clear improvement to our political process by offering people to not ever have to vote strategically again, to give a preference on your ballot, to rank your ballot. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people say it favors Liberals. What it does is it favors parties who are good at reaching out to find common ground with broad groups of Canadians, to say, can I be your second choice? That's what it does. I think that's probably a good thing, but I've heard very clearly that people don't think that's a good thing, or that they think it would favor Liberals too much, and therefore I'm not going near it, because I am not going to do something that everyone is convinced is going to favor one party over another. To rank your ballot. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people say it favors Liberals. What it does is it favors parties who are good at reaching out to find common ground with broad groups of Canadians, to say, can I be your second choice? That's what it does. I think that's probably a good thing, but I've heard very clearly that people don't think that's a good thing, or that they think it would favor Liberals too much, and therefore I'm not going near it, because I am not going to do something that everyone is convinced is going to favor one party over another. So then we get down to the remaining choices. A referendum, which we've seen recently what happens when referendums go, whether it's Brexit, whether it's the Italian one, whether it's, there is a lot of divisiveness, particularly on an issue that is very important to a small number of people, but not nearly as important as jobs and healthcare and educational opportunities and reconciliation and a whole bunch of other issues to a lot of other Canadians. It's an important one, but it's not the only one. And the danger of a divisive a division within the country, and a campaign that is likely to get a lot of heated rhetoric at a time where we're looking for stability in face of a very unpredictable and unstable political context around the world. I don't think a referendum is the right way to go. And then there's proportional representation, which is the one that a lot of people like. One of the things that's great about Canada, and I've talked about it a few times in this, is we're a country that focuses on common ground. We're a country that focuses on the things we have in common with each other, even though we're different. And the differences in Canada, there's east to west, south to north, English to French, to every background imaginable, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, urban, rural, left, right, there are more differences within Canada, within Canadians, than within just about any other country in the world. And yet, better than any other country in the world, we've figured out how to make those differences a source of strength. We've figured out how to remember that the things that unite us are always more important than the things that divide us, that differentiate us from each other. And our political systems have worked because people of every different background, every different corner of the country come together to form governments of different types. We have governments that have better representation from the West or the East, or better representation amongst Quebecers or non, or more Indigenous communities supporting them than others. But writ large, we have big groupings that include the diversity of Canada that people lean on, and that people draw on, and that people find their voices for. And if we were to make a change or risk a change that would augment individual voices, that would augment extremist voices and activist voices that don't get to sit within a party that figures out what the best path for the whole future of the country, like the existing three big parties do, I think we'd be entering an era of instability and uncertainty, and we would be putting at risk the very thing that makes us luckier than anyone else on the planet, the fact that we look at our differences as something to draw on and discover and build on, as opposed to emphasize and highlight. So for me, on the things that unite us rather than the things that divide us. And it is because I felt that it was not in the best interest of our country or of our future that I turned my back on that promise. And I know people will be disappointed, yep. But this was my choice to make. And I chose to make it with full consequence of the cost that is possibly going to come to it. But I will not compromise on what is in the best interest of Canada. That's what Canadians elected me for.
I was just wondering what changed your mind on proportional representation.
That's a great question. We got elected on a commitment that this upcoming election in 2019 wouldn't be held under the first-past-the-post system, that we would change our electoral system. And over the first couple of years of our mandate, we did a range of consultations to look at different options, to see if there was consensus, to see what people were putting forward as ideas. What became clear was that people very much, or there was a group of people out there, well, they were divided. A number of people want to keep the status quo. A number of people very much wanted proportional representation. And my party and I am fairly clear that a preferential ballot is probably the best approach. The reason, and you say change my mind on proportional representation, I've never changed my mind on proportional representation. You can go back to early debates in the Liberal leadership where I'm arguing very clearly against proportional representation because I feel that in our country, increasing the number of political parties massively to represent different segments of 5 or 10% of the population is not a recipe for stability in getting things done. I mean, diversity is a fact of, and a strength of Canada. We have so many different perspectives and voices, but I think those voices are best translated into governments and policies when the diversity comes within political parties as opposed to across political parties. You know, to have one party for left-handed people, to have another party representing this regional interest, to have another party of people who, you know, don't want immigration at all, or to have another party of, you can always find little groups that will get behind a single specific idea. But one of the things that has given tremendous stability in Canada is having, you know, larger parties that have to be big tents that bring in diverse geographies, diverse perspectives, diverse identities, and work out the best path forward as a group.
If you are reelected into government, would you consider revisiting the issue? And also, to what extent does the apparent rise of the PPC factor into that thinking?
I have always been a fan of ranked ballots, where people get to choose first choice, second choice, third choice. I think it forces parties to come together and make a pitch to be the second choice of other voters, and therefore they are less divisive as elections. I am not a fan of proportional representation because it gives more weight to smaller parties that are perhaps fringe parties, as we've seen right now. But this is something that we approached years ago. There was no consensus. If ever there is more of a consensus, it could be interesting to follow up on, and I'd be open to that because I've never flinched in my desire for more for ranked ballots. But that's not the priority, and this is the first time in 36 days that anyone has asked me about election reform, electoral reform.
You say you.
Yeah, hello. This is a question for Mr. Prime Minister. So my question is, will you fulfill the promise you made in your 2015 and 2021 campaigns by replacing the first past-the-post electoral system with a new kind of proportional representation electoral system? Thank you.
No. I don't believe in proportional representation. I don't think it's a good idea. I did commit to replacing the first past the post system. I love the idea of a ranked ballot where you get to pick your first choice, you know, pick the red guy first and then the orange girl second and the green person third, and then you never get the blue person if that's the way you choose to vote.